The golden sun dipped low over the hills of Nkambi, casting long shadows through the village. Smoke curled lazily from mud-thatched huts, filling the air with the scent of roasting yams and burning wood. Children ran barefoot, their laughter weaving through the melody of distant drums, but for Ebele and Dike, the world was quiet. They sat beneath the ancient Iroko tree by the river, their favorite place since childhood. The cool evening breeze played with Ebele's braided hair, and Dike traced patterns in the damp earth with a small stick. "You'll marry me one day, won't you?" Dike asked, his voice laced with hope. Ebele smiled, dipping her fingers into the water. "You ask as if there is another choice. It has always been you, Dike." A proud grin stretched across his face. "Then it is settled. When the next planting season comes, I will ask your father properly." The idea of a future with Dike filled Ebele with warmth, but deep inside, she knew that love was never simple. Her father, Chief Obiora, was a man of ambition. He valued wealth and alliances more than the foolish desires of a young girl. But surely, she thought, he would not refuse Dike, her Dike, who was the best hunter in the village, the one who knew the secrets of the land better than anyone. Yet fate had other plans. That night, as she returned home, she found the elders gathered in their compound, their faces solemn, their eyes heavy with unspoken truths. At the center of them stood Prince Ifeanyi, heir to the throne of Nkambi, draped in rich crimson robes. His gaze lingered on her for a moment before he turned to Chief Obiora. "You have been a loyal friend to my father," the prince said, his voice deep and commanding. "I wish to honor your house by making your daughter my wife." Ebele's breath caught in her throat. Her mother, standing beside the chief, gasped softly, pressing a hand to her lips. "My prince," Chief Obiora said, bowing his head. "This is an honor beyond words. But Ebele is still young." "She is of age," the prince interrupted. "And your family will never know hunger again." The weight of those words settled over them like a storm cloud. Riches, power, security, everything her father had ever wanted. Ebele saw the hesitation in his eyes, the way his fingers curled into a fist. "No," she whispered, stepping forward. "I am promised to another." A silence fell over the gathering, thick and suffocating. The prince's smile did not falter, but something dark flickered in his gaze. "You belong to me now," he said simply. Ebele turned to her father, pleading with her eyes, but his face had turned to stone. "You will marry the prince," Chief Obiora declared. "This is final." That night, as the village celebrated the news with drums and wine, Ebele ran to the river, tears staining her cheeks. Dike was already there, waiting. "Tell me it isn't true," he demanded. She sobbed, unable to form the words. Rage twisted his features. "I will fight for you. I will challenge the prince." "You cannot," she said through trembling lips. "You will die." Dike clenched his fist, his entire body trembling with anger and pain. "Then I would rather die than live without you." She reached for him, but he stepped back. "There is a place," he said. "The forbidden forest. They say spirits guard it, that it changes men. If I enter, I may never return." Ebele's heart pounded. "Don't go." But his eyes were already distant, lost in the darkness of his thoughts. "Promise me," she whispered, desperate. "Promise me you won't disappear." Dike hesitated, then cupped her face in his hands. "I promise." Yet, as the sun rose the next morning, Dike was gone. And with him, a piece of her soul. The morning after Dike's disappearance, Ebele felt as if the world had lost its color. The birds still sang, the market women still gossiped, and the river still flowed, but nothing felt the same. She searched for him, at his mother's hut, in the fields where he hunted, even by the river where they had shared their last words. But he was gone. Whispers spread quickly through the village. Some claimed he had fled out of shame, unwilling to watch her become another man's wife. Others said he had wandered into the forbidden forest, a cursed place where spirits claimed the souls of those who entered. Ebele refused to believe any of it. "He will return," she told herself. He promised. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into moons. There was no sign of him. Her wedding to Prince Ifeanyi was a spectacle. Gold and red adorned her body, and the villagers cheered as if it were a joyous occasion. But inside, she felt nothing. Each step she took toward the prince felt like another piece of her soul being buried. The marriage was not unkind, but it was cold. Ifeanyi was a man who took what he wanted and gave little in return. He adorned her with the finest silks and gold, yet she felt like a bird trapped in a gilded cage. Years passed, and with them came duty. Ebele played the role of the prince's wife, but her heart remained elsewhere, trapped in the past with the boy who had once promised her forever. Then, one fateful night, everything changed. Prince Ifeanyi did not return to their chambers. His guards found him at the edge of the village, his body cold, his eyes wide with horror. There were no wounds, no signs of struggle, just the unmistakable look of a man who had seen something beyond this world before he drew his last breath. Fear swept through Nkambi like wildfire. The people whispered of curses and vengeful spirits. And then, the rumors began. Ebele was a witch. It did not matter that she had shed real tears over her husband's lifeless body. It did not matter that she had never wished him harm. The people needed someone to blame, and who better than the wife who had never truly loved him? The council of elders convened in secret. By dawn, the decision was made. Ebele would be tried for witchcraft. Her mother, now widowed, wept at her feet. "Run, my child," she whispered, pressing a small bag of coins into her hands. "Before they come for you." "Where would I go?" Ebele asked, her voice hollow. Her mother hesitated before speaking the words that would change everything. "The forbidden forest." Ebele's breath caught. "The spirits do not harm those who are truly innocent," her mother said. "If you are guilty, they will take your soul. But if you are not, they may protect you." Or, Ebele thought, they may lead her to the one person she had never stopped searching for. As the first rays of dawn touched the village, Ebele wrapped herself in a simple cloak, took a deep breath, and stepped into the shadows of the forest, where Dike had disappeared years ago. Ebele's bare feet sank into the damp earth as she stepped into the forbidden forest. The air was thick with the scent of moss and something ancient, something watching. Trees stretched high into the sky, their twisted branches forming eerie silhouettes against the dim moonlight. She shivered but pressed forward, her mother's words echoing in her mind. The spirits do not harm those who are truly innocent. But what if she wasn't? What if her heart had unknowingly cursed Ifeanyi? What if her longing for another man had summoned dark forces against him? A sudden gust of wind rushed through the trees, whispering voices riding the air. She turned sharply, but there was nothing there. Just the forest, pulsing with unseen eyes. Then, she heard it. A faint drumbeat, deep and rhythmic, vibrating through the ground. She followed the sound, pushing past thick vines and stepping over tangled roots. The deeper she went, the more the world around her changed. The trees no longer seemed lifeless, they moved, shifting in ways that defied nature. Shadows stretched unnaturally, and the very air seemed to breathe. Then she saw him. A figure stood in the clearing, tall and broad, his back to her. He was dressed in black robes that shimmered like mist, his long braids adorned with beads that gleamed in the moonlight. Two swords crossed his back, their hilts glowing with an eerie blue light. Her heart pounded. "Dike." She took a step forward, but before she could call his name, he turned. His face was sharper than she remembered, his once warm eyes now cold, glowing with a supernatural light. The boy she had loved was gone. In his place stood something more. Something otherworldly. "Ebele," he said, his voice a whisper that sent chills down her spine. She wanted to run to him, to throw her arms around him, but his expression stopped her. There was no joy in his gaze, no relief at seeing her after all these years. There was only weariness. "You should not have come here," he said. Tears burned her eyes. "I had no choice." His jaw tightened. "You don't belong in this world." "And you do," she shot back, stepping closer. "You disappeared, Dike. You left me." His face darkened. "I didn't leave. I was taken." Her breath caught. "By who?" He hesitated, but before he could answer, a piercing scream ripped through the forest. Ebele turned toward the sound, but Dike was already moving. In a flash, he was beside her, his hand gripping her wrist. "We have to go," he said urgently. "Go where?" Before he could respond, a dark figure emerged from the shadows. Its eyes glowed red, its body shifting like smoke. It wasn't human. Ebele's blood ran cold. The spirit's gaze locked onto her, its voice a whisper of death. "She does not belong here." Dike stepped in front of her, drawing his swords. "She's under my protection." The spirit laughed, a sound that made the trees tremble. "Then she is cursed just as you are, spirit warrior." Ebele's heart slammed against her ribs. "Cursed?" She turned to Dike, but he wasn't looking at her. His grip tightened around his swords, his body curled like a predator ready to strike. The past had brought them together again. But the curse was just beginning. Ebele's breath came in shallow gasps as the spirit's laughter echoed through the trees. The weight of its words pressed against her chest, cursed. What did it mean? What had happened to Dike? She looked at him, but his focus remained on the creature before them. His fingers flexed around the hilts of his swords, the eerie blue glow intensifying. Leave, Dike commanded. His voice was steady, but there was something unfamiliar in it, something powerful, almost inhuman. The spirit tilted its head, a dark mist swirling around it. You cannot run from your fate, warrior. And neither can she. Before Ebele could react, the spirit lunged. Dike moved faster than she thought possible. One moment he stood beside her, the next he was midair, spinning with deadly precision. His sword slashed through the mist-like figure, but instead of falling, the spirit twisted and reformed, laughing in a voice that sent chills down her spine. You still fight the inevitable, Dike, it hissed. Dike landed gracefully, his jaw clenched. I don't serve you, he growled. The spirit circled him, ignoring Ebele as if she were nothing more than an afterthought. Oh, but you do. You bear the mark, don't you? Ebele's gaze snapped to Dike's arm, where his sleeve had been torn during the fight. There, glowing faintly against his dark skin, was a symbol, a mark unlike anything she had ever seen. It pulsed with the same eerie blue light as his swords. Her stomach twisted. Dike, she whispered. What have you become? He didn't answer. The spirit let out another low laugh. She does not know, does she? Dike's grip on his swords tightened. Enough, he said, his voice sharp. She's under my protection. Tell your master that. The spirit paused, as if considering his words, then grinned, a terrifying, jagged grin that stretched too wide for a human face. Very well, warrior. But she will learn the truth soon enough. With that, the misty figure dissolved into the shadows, its laughter fading into the wind. Silence settled over them. Ebele turned to Dike, her heart still racing. Tell me what's going on. He exhaled, sheathing his swords. Not here. Without another word, he grabbed her hand and pulled her deeper into the forest. They walked for what felt like hours, the only sound the crunch of leaves beneath their feet. Ebele stole glances at him, searching for the boy she had once known, but all she saw was a man hardened by time and something far worse. Finally, they stopped at a hidden clearing, where a small fire burned in the center. Around it were weapons, strange markings on the ground, and a stone altar covered in vines. Where are we? She asked. My refuge, Dike said, releasing her hand. He moved to the fire, his face unreadable. No spirits can enter here. Ebele crossed her arms, frustration bubbling to the surface. Are you going to explain now? What happened to you? What is that mark on your arm? Dike was silent for a long time. Then, in a voice filled with something between pain and anger, he said, I died, Ebele. She stiffened. What? When I entered the forest years ago, I was reckless. I didn't care what happened to me. I just wanted to escape the pain. He flexed his fingers, staring at the flames. But the spirits found me. They saw my grief, and they made me an offer. Her stomach twisted. What kind of offer? Dike turned to her, his glowing eyes filled with something haunting. To become one of them. Ebele's breath caught. You're a spirit warrior, he finished. Bound to this place. Bound to them. He gestured to the mark on his arm. This is the price I paid for my foolishness. Ebele took a shaky step back. No, there must be a way to break it. Dike's lips curled into something bitter. You think I haven't tried? Her hands trembled. Then why are you still here? He exhaled, looking away. Because there is only one way to break my curse. She waited, her heart pounding. Dike met her gaze, and for the first time since she had found him, she saw something raw in his expression. The curse can only be broken if I give up the one thing that still ties me to the world of the living. Asterisk. Ebele swallowed hard. And what is that? His voice was barely a whisper when he answered. You. Ebele's breath caught in her throat. You, she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. Dike's gaze didn't waver. You are the only thing keeping me tethered to this world, Ebele. The weight of his words settled over her like a thick fog. It didn't make sense. She had spent years believing he was lost to her, that time had severed whatever bond they once shared. But now, standing before him, she realized it had never broken. She was still his. And he was still hers. A lump formed in her throat. How can I break the curse? Dike turned away, his jaw tight. The spirits bound me to this forest because of my pain, my longing for revenge. If I let go of that, if I let go of you, I will finally be free. Her chest tightened. What does that mean? He hesitated before answering. It means I will forget you. The words hit her like a dagger. No, she whispered, stepping closer. There has to be another way. There isn't, Dike said, his voice firm. I've tried everything. The spirits made sure of it. As long as I hold on to my love for you, I remain bound to them. The moment I release it, I will be free, but I will no longer remember you, Ebele. Tears welled in her eyes. To save him, she had to lose him forever. She shook her head. I won't accept that. Ebele. There has to be another way, Dike. She grabbed his hands, gripping them tightly. You can't ask me to watch you forget everything we had. He flinched, as if her touch burned him. For a moment, his fingers twitched around hers, and something flickered in his glowing eyes, pain. Longing. Love. Then, as if remembering himself, he pulled away. Ebele, I'm already lost. She clenched her fist. No. If the spirits cursed you because of your love for me, then that means love is stronger than their magic. He frowned. What are you saying? She swallowed hard, her heart racing. I'm saying we don't need to break the curse by forgetting, she said, her voice growing steadier. We break it by proving them wrong. His brows furrowed. They think love is a weakness, she continued. That it's something to be erased. But what if it's the one thing strong enough to set you free? Dike hesitated, something unreadable in his expression. Ebele, the spirits. They don't control us, she interrupted, stepping closer. They only have power if we let them. If love is what binds you to this place, then love should be able to set you free. For the first time since she had found him, doubt flickered in his gaze. Could it be true? Could love defy even the spirits? Before he could answer, the ground trembled beneath them. A cold wind howled through the trees, carrying whispers that sent chills down Ebele's spine. Enough. The spirits had heard them. Dark mist swirled around the clearing, forming shapes, twisted figures with glowing eyes, their voices layered and ominous. You defy the laws of the spirit realm, warrior. Dike's sword flew to his hands, glowing blue against the dark mist. Stay behind me, he murmured to Ebele. But she didn't move. No, she said firmly, stepping beside him. Dike shot her a warning look. Ebele, this isn't. She is the source of your suffering, the spirits hissed. Let her go, and you shall be free. Ebele's pulse pounded. This was it. The moment that would decide everything. She turned to Dike, eyes shining. Don't let them win. Dike stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he lowered his swords. No, he said, his voice clear and strong. I won't let her go. The spirits let out a deafening shriek, the mist swirling violently. Then you shall suffer. A blast of dark energy surged toward them. Instinctively, Dike pulled Ebele into his arms, shielding her. But just as the energy was about to hit, a brilliant light exploded from Ebele's chest. The spirits screamed, recoiling from the light as if it burned them. The mist began to dissolve, their forms fading. Dike gasped, stepping back, his hand clutching his chest. The mark on his arm glowed brightly, then cracked like shattered glass. Ebele's vision blurred, but she felt it, the power, the warmth. And then, silence. When she opened her eyes, the spirits were gone. The air was still. The forest, once dark and cursed, was bathed in soft moonlight. She turned to Dike. His swords were gone. The eerie glow in his eyes had faded. His mark had disappeared. Dike, she whispered. He looked at her, confusion flickering across his face. Then, a small, slow smile spread across his lips. I remember everything, he murmured. Ebele let out a soft sob, relief washing over her. The curse was broken. And this time, nothing would tear them apart. Ebele trembled as she stared at Dike, her heart pounding from the aftermath of the spirit's retreat. The clearing was eerily quiet, the once haunting forest now bathed in silver moonlight. You're free, she whispered, stepping closer. Dike looked down at his hands, flexing his fingers as if testing his own reality. The mark on his arm was gone, the cold weight of the spirits no longer pressing against him. He inhaled deeply, his first breath as a man unshackled. He turned to Ebele, a slow smile curving his lips. Yes, he murmured. I am. Tears welled in her eyes. She had fought for him, refused to let him go, and now they were finally standing together, whole. But something in Dike's expression shifted. His eyes, once glowing with supernatural energy, were dark and unreadable now. His brows furrowed slightly, as if trying to grasp something just out of reach. Ebele's breath hitched. What's wrong? Dike hesitated, then shook his head. It's nothing, he exhaled sharply. I feel different. Ebele frowned. But the curse is broken. You said you remember everything. I do, he confirmed. But there's something missing. She stiffened. Missing? Dike stepped away from her, his gaze distant. The spirits bound me to them because of my pain, my love for you. When you broke the curse, I should have been freed completely. But I still feel. He clenched his fist. Like a part of me was left behind. A chill ran through Ebele. What are you saying? Dike turned to her, his face a mix of confusion and frustration. What if breaking the curse took something from me? What if I lost more than just my connection to the spirits? Ebele's stomach twisted. She had fought to save him, but at what cost? No, she said firmly. You're here. You're alive. That's all that matters. But doubt flickered in Dike's eyes. Is it? Before she could respond, a rustling in the trees made them both turn sharply. From the shadows, an elderly woman emerged, her white robes flowing as she stepped into the clearing. Her silver hair cascaded down her back, and her deep-set eyes held the wisdom of many lifetimes. Ebele recognized her instantly, Mama Yuzo, the village seer. You have done what no mortal has done before, Mama Yuzo said, her voice low and knowing. You have broken a spirit's bond with love. Dike studied her warily. But something is wrong, he said. I can feel it. The old woman nodded solemnly. Because love can free, but it also demands a sacrifice. Ebele's pulse pounded. What sacrifice? Mama Yuzo's gaze softened as she turned to Dike. When the spirits took you, they did not just bind you to them. They made you one of them. And when Ebele broke their hold, she did not just free you. Dike stiffened. What do you mean? The seer's eyes darkened. She took your place. The words struck like lightning. Ebele's breath itched as the ground beneath her tilted. No, that's not possible. Mama Yuzo reached into her robes and pulled out a small, polished mirror. Look. Ebele hesitated, then slowly took the mirror. Her hands trembled as she lifted it to her face. And nearly dropped it. Her reflection was the same, but her eyes were glowing. A deep, golden light pulsed from within them, the same supernatural energy that had once belonged to Dike. She gasped, stepping back. No, this can't be happening. Dike grabbed her shoulders, his grip firm. Ebele, listen to me. We'll fix this. We'll find a way to. Mama Yuzo shook her head. The spirits do not take without giving in return. Dike was freed because Ebele became the vessel they could no longer claim. She now carries the remnants of their power. Ebele's heart pounded in her chest. But I don't want it. You may not have a choice, the seer said gravely. The question now is, what will you do with it? Silence stretched between them, thick with the weight of this new reality. Dike clenched his jaw. Then I'll fight for her, just like she fought for me. Mama Yuzo gave him a sad smile. You may try, but the spirits will not make it easy. Ebele swallowed hard. She had come into the forest to find Dike, to save him. But now, she was the one who needed saving. And she wasn't sure if there was a way out. Ebele's hands shook as she held the mirror. Her eyes glowed, just like Dike's had before. She dropped the mirror, stepping away as fear crawled through her chest. No, she whispered. This is a mistake. I can't be cursed. Dike grabbed her arms gently. Ebele, look at me. We'll fix this. Mama Yuzo sighed. Child, the spirits never take without giving something in return. You saved Dike, but you have taken his place. Ebele shook her head. I don't want their power. I just want to go home. Mama Yuzo's face softened. The spirits do not care what you want. The bond is already made. Ebele felt the truth in her words. Deep inside, she could hear whispers, soft voices calling her name, pulling her toward the forest. She pressed her hands to her ears, trying to shut them out, but they only grew louder. Dike saw her distress and turned to Mama Yuzo. Tell us what to do, he said. There must be a way to break this. The old woman sighed. There may be a way, but it will not be easy. Tell us, Dike demanded. Mama Yuzo looked at Ebele with sad eyes. You must return to the spirits and offer them something greater than what they have taken. Ebele's breath caught. Something greater. The spirits feed on love, loss, and sacrifice, Mama Yuzo said. They took you because of the deep love you shared with Dike. If you wish to be free, you must give them something stronger. Dike's grip tightened on Ebele's hand. No, he said firmly. I won't let her trade her life for anything else. But Mama Yuzo's face remained grave. Then she will remain cursed forever. Ebele's heart pounded. The spirits had taken Dike once, and now they had taken her. Would they ever be free? She turned to Dike, her voice shaking. I don't want to live like this. His eyes darkened. Then we fight. Together. Mama Yuzo watched them for a moment, then nodded. At sunrise, I will prepare a ritual. But be warned, the spirits will not let you go without a battle. Ebele swallowed hard. She had already lost so much, her home, her family, her freedom. But as she looked at Dike, she knew one thing for certain. She would fight. And this time, she would win. The night was long and restless. Ebele and Dike sat by Mama Yuzo's fire, their hands clasped tightly together. The wind outside howled through the trees, whispering secrets only the curs could hear. You should rest, Dike murmured, brushing his thumb over her knuckles. Ebele shook her head. How can I sleep when I don't know what will happen at sunrise? Mama Yuzo stirred a pot of herbs, her silver hair shining in the firelight. Fear will not help you, child, she said. But courage might. Ebele swallowed. She wanted to be strong, but the whispers in her head wouldn't stop. They called to her, pulling her toward the forest, toward the spirits. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply. What if they refuse to let me go? Mama Yuzo poured a dark liquid into a small wooden cup and handed it to her. Then you must make them an offer they cannot refuse. Ebele hesitated before taking the cup. The bitter scent made her nose sting. What kind of offer? Mama Yuzo's gaze was steady. A life for a life. Dike tensed. No. I won't let her sacrifice herself. Mama Yuzo shook her head. That is not what I mean. She turned to Ebele. The spirits want something powerful in return for your freedom. A soul bound to them willingly. You must trick them into taking something else. Ebele frowned. Like what? The old woman's face darkened. A soul that does not belong to them yet, but soon will. Dike's jaw tightened. Who? Mama Yuzo turned to the fire, her eyes distant. Tomorrow, we will go to the forest. And there, you will make your choice. At sunrise. The forest was colder than before. Mist curled around the trees, and the air was thick with whispers. Ebele's skin prickled. She could feel the spirits watching her. Dike stood beside her, his sword strapped to his back. Whatever happens, I won't leave your side. Mama Yuzo walked ahead, her staff tapping against the ground. Remember, child, the spirits are greedy. They will take whatever they can. But you must be clever. A low hum filled the air. The mist thickened. And then, as they appeared, dark figures rose from the fog, their glowing eyes fixed on Ebele. The spirits of the forbidden forest. You have returned, they whispered. Ebele's heart pounded. I have come to make a bargain. The spirit circled her slowly. You belong to us now. There is no bargain to make. She lifted her chin. Then I will give you something greater. Silence. Then, a sharp voice asked, what do you offer? Ebele hesitated. She could feel Dike's gaze on her, his worry, his fear. Then she took a deep breath and spoke. The prince who forced me into marriage. The spirit stilled. Mama Yuzo's lips curled into a knowing smile. Explain, the spirits hissed. Ebele's voice was steady. The prince who took me from Dike is greedy, cruel, and power-hungry. He is not yours yet, but his soul is dark. If you take him instead, you will have a willing sacrifice, a soul that deserves to be bound. The spirits whispered among themselves. A soul filled with greed and sin. Yes. He would serve us well. The mist swirled violently. If we take him, you will be free. But beware, girl, every bargain has a price. Ebele's hands clenched into fists. I accept. A chilling laugh echoed through the trees. The spirit forms began to fade, their whispers calling around her ears like smoke. Then it is done. The wind howled. The ground shook. And just like that, Ebele felt the bond break. The whispers vanished. The glow in her eyes dimmed. She was free. Dike pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "You did it," he murmured. "It's over." Ebele exhaled, her whole body shaking. She was finally free. But deep down, she knew. The spirits never gave without taking something in return. And soon, she would learn what that price truly was. For the first time in weeks, Ebele felt human. The cold whispers of the spirits were gone, and the weight on her chest had lifted. She was free. But the feeling didn't last long. As she and Dike walked out of the forbidden forest, a strange unease settled in her stomach. Mama Yuzo had warned them, every bargain had a price. And the spirits always collected. Back in the village, the villagers gasped when they saw Ebele. They had believed her dead. Women whispered behind their palms. Children peeked from behind their mothers' wrappers. The elders frowned, their eyes wary. Ebele ignored their stares and walked straight to her family's compound. She needed to see her mother. But when she reached the entrance, her feet froze. Her mother stood outside, her eyes swollen from crying. And beside her, the prince's guards. Ebele's stomach dropped. "She is here," one guard shouted. "The witch has returned." Before she could react, rough hands grabbed her arms. "You dare show your face after killing the prince?" the head guard spat. Ebele's breath caught. Killing. Then it hit her. The spirits had taken the prince. The village believed it was her doing. Dike stepped forward, his hand on his sword. "Let her go." But more guards surrounded them, spears raised. "You will answer for your crimes," the head guard growled. "The king has ordered your execution." Ebele's blood ran cold. She had escaped one curse, only to fall into another. Dike's grip tightened around his sword, his eyes burning with rage. But Mama Yuzo's voice rang out from behind them. "Stop." The old woman stepped forward, her presence commanding. "If you take her, you must take the truth as well." The guards hesitated. Mama Yuzo turned to the crowd. "Ebele did not kill the prince. The spirits took him as payment for the evil he has done." Murmur spread through the villagers. Some nodded, remembering the prince's cruelty. Others frowned, still afraid. The head guard sneered. "Lies. The king demands justice." Mama Yuzo's eyes darkened. "Then let the spirits decide." A hush fell over the crowd. The village seer had spoken. And no one dared question the spirits. The trial. That night, the villagers gathered at the shrine. A fire burned in the center, casting eerie shadows on the elders' faces. Ebele knelt before them, her hands tied. "The spirits will judge her," the chief elder announced. "If she is guilty, they will take her. If she is innocent, they will spare her." The crowd held its breath. Mama Yuzo stepped forward, her staff glowing faintly in the firelight. She lifted her hands and called upon the spirits. The wind howled. The fire flickered. Then, silence. Ebele squeezed her eyes shut, waiting. Then, a voice whispered through the air. "She belongs to us no longer." Gasps erupted from the crowd. The spirits had spoken. Ebele was free. The head guard turned pale. But Mama Yuzo cut him off. "The prince's sins brought his fate upon him. Justice has been served." Slowly, the chief elder nodded. "The spirits have spoken. She is innocent." The guards had no choice but to release her. Ebele's legs trembled as she stood. She turned to Dike, who was already reaching for her, his eyes filled with relief. She was safe. She was free. But deep inside, she knew. The spirits never let go so easily. And whatever they had planned next, she was not ready. The village had accepted Ebele's innocence, but the shadows of the past still lingered. She could feel it. Even as she walked freely among her people, even as Dike held her hand, something inside her whispered, it was not over. She tried to ignore it. She tried to believe that her nightmare had ended. Until the dream started. The spirits returned. For 3 nights, Ebele woke up gasping for air, her body drenched in sweat. Each time, the same vision haunted her, a dark mist calling through the village, swallowing everything in its path. And at the center of it, Dike. Bound. Helpless. Taken. Ebele sat up in bed, pressing a hand to her racing heart. She turned to Dike, who was fast asleep beside her. She knew what the spirits wanted. They had taken the prince in exchange for her freedom. But now, they wanted more. They wanted Dike. The choice. By dawn, Ebele had made her decision. She found Mama Yuzo at the river, gathering herbs. "You knew this wasn't over," Ebele said, voice tight. Mama Yuzo sighed, not turning around. "The spirits are never satisfied, child." Ebele swallowed hard. "What do they want?" The old woman turned to her, eyes heavy with sorrow. "They want balance. A life was taken. A soul was freed. Now, they seek another to take its place." Ebele's hands clenched. "They won't take Dike." Mama Yuzo nodded. "Then you must go to them, before they come for him." Ebele walked into the forbidden forest one last time. Mist swirled around her feet as the spirits whispered her name. "You have returned." She stood tall. "You made a bargain with me. Now you try to break it." A chilling laugh echoed. "We never break our bargains, child. But we always collect our due." Ebele's breath shook. "Then take me instead." Silence. Then the air crackled with dark energy. "You would offer yourself for him?" She didn't hesitate. "Yes. Asterisk even knowing you will."